Welcome to It's Personal, Not Just Business, with your host, Michael Fliegelman. In each episode, you'll learn lessons from other successful financial advisors and brokers. You can find this show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on swanwealth.com. Now here's the host of It's Personal, Not Just Business, Michael Fliegelman.
Welcome, everybody, to another version of It's Personal, Not Just Business. I'm Michael Fliegelman, founder of Strategic Wealth Advisor Network. Today, I'm excited to be with Mr. Arjun Kapoor. Arjun, got to know Arjun about a year ago through a colleague that we did another version of this podcast, Mr. Asghar Kazim. And getting to know Arjun through Oscar has been a real privilege. And I'm excited to welcome you today to our show, Arjun.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Very excited. So thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Arjun, tell me a little bit about yourself. Share a little bit about your background and how you ended up in working with Asghar, and a little bit about your background and family, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a Jersey boy. Grew up in central New Jersey. Went to a small private high school in New Jersey, in Metuchen, New Jersey, St. Joe's High School. Having finished high school there, I kind of wanted the exact opposite, if you call it. Growing up in the suburbs, in a small high school, I wanted the big city, the big college, the big kind of city lifestyle that everyone dreams of. Similarly, I didn't want to be too close to home. I didn't want to be too far, but at the same time, didn't want my parents coming that quickly to me. But at the same time, also not kind of running home at every quick instance. So fell in love with Boston when I was looking at different colleges, and was fortunate to get into Boston University. When I got to BU, I definitely had more of a math and quantitative background, or at least an interest at that time. So started exploring different fields, and really was able to take advantage of all the opportunities that BU and Boston had through the various alums that I connected with. But also some of the internship opportunities that I had, some in wealth management, some in risk management, investment management in general, and really got to figure out what I really liked and disliked, in a career path. From there, I was fortunate enough to land a great internship at Goldman Sachs in their private wealth management group, actually up in Boston. So did that internship for about one summer, and then was fortunate to get the full-time offer to start there right after college. Had a great time in Boston, worked there for about a year and a half or so post college, and then made the transition back to New York. Being a Jersey guy, eventually you have to find your way back to the tri-state area. And, I was just sort of looking forward to kind of being in the city. So moved over to New York, worked at Goldman for, another 5-6 years, and then kind of decided that it was time to pivot and look at the next opportunity. From there, I was fortunate to join another big brand name in New York, Iconic Capital, really focused on similar business line, wealth management, private wealth management. Did that for about a year or so, and really during that time, I'd say I found my true calling. I think working with some of the entrepreneurs, some of the business leaders, some of the business founders as clients, I think it really gave me a level of excitement about wanting to do something more entrepreneurial myself. But what that was, or where that would take itself, I think that was more of a question mark, but I knew that was going to be the next chapter of my career. Through some of the personal connections, some of my network, I was fortunate to meet Nick Saleem, another financial advisor in our practice. And then from there, got to meet Asghar Kazim. Really hit it off with both of them on a personal level. I think their style, their ability to connect with clients, all of that, I think just resonated very well with me. And I think that it just felt like it would be a great next fit. That was almost, a little over 3 years ago now. came on board with the United Wealth Group team, and it's been a tremendous success over the past 3 years. I think I've found what I would say is my true calling. It's allowed me to really develop a skill set that I think that I had, but I really got to really strengthen in this sort of environment. It's been a great pleasure kind of working with both of them, learning from both of them, obviously being tremendous success stories in their own respective fields and with their clients. So yeah, that's what brings me here today. I know through Oscar is how we got connected. So but glad to be here.
Well, thank you for sharing. It's really interesting. You have such a great background in spending time with such a prestigious firm at Goldman. And then something clicked, it seemed, for you to change your path from, and many times when I work with financial advisors, there's this kind of like two-door situation. I could go down this door of working for the big company, or I could go down this other door and building my own practice, my own business, that entrepreneurial door, not draw. So what made you open up the entrepreneurial door? What made you realize that was your passion rather than, continuing in the big corporate world, if you will?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because those two doors that you just mentioned were really the two doors that I was always grappling with from day one. Really, having grown up, in sort of an immigrant family, a lot of my extended family were small business owners. They had their own types of business that they were focused on. So I saw the value and the power of that entrepreneurial background. So while my parents themselves were not necessarily in that, a lot of my extended family was. So I saw growing up kind of the passion, the excitement that they had when they spoke about their businesses and all that they had. So I think I definitely saw that growing up. I think the more of the corporate door was something that you almost get trained into thinking that that's kind of where the job opportunity always lies, especially in financial services. So I think for me, right out of college, it was always, do I go down the corporate route and that door, or do I go down the entrepreneurial route and do something on my own? I think initially at the time, it made sense to go down the corporate route, and I would never change that. I think the skill set that I developed really brought me to a level that allowed me to do well by going down the second door at that time. But I think it reached a point where I had felt like I almost hit a ceiling, right? I almost plateaued down the corporate route. And I just didn't see myself wanting to continue down that path further. I wanted a different challenge. And I wanted to explore that entrepreneurial kind of background that I saw growing up. And I just felt like it was the right time to make that jump.
Yeah, it's such an exciting jump from going from the corporate world into the entrepreneurial, self-employed world. So many rich comments you made. I want to stop and talk about a couple of them. It seems to me that when people come from an immigrant mentality, my father came here in 1920, steerage class, Ellis Island, Lower East Side of Manhattan. And what did he do after World War II? After he served our country under General Patton in World War II and fought in the Battle of the Bulge, he came back, like a lot of immigrants, and opened up his own business. That happened to be the jewelry business. And it seems like people like that have like this burning desire to succeed. And I love the fact that, you took all what you learned from Goldman and Iconics and turned it into your passion and your future. I think it's an amazing investment in yourself. We talk a lot about human life value, and what you are growing is a business for yourself and investing in yourself. I know that we got to know each other at a recent industry event where, you keep on investing in your growth and great things will happen. One of the things that happened while you were at Goldman was that you became a CFA. That had to be very challenging, which stands for a Chartered Financial Analyst. Now, many of you don't know what that is, but the people that manage portfolios, stock portfolios, ETFs, mutual funds, these people have this designation, and you were able to get that. Share with us a little bit about how that helps you with your clients and what that experience has done to make you a better, more aware financial advisor.
Yeah, so it's a period of time that I try to almost block off just because of how intense and stressful it was. But honestly, like not even kind of joking around it, I think it was a difficult time. But what it allowed was it allowed me to learn more about myself, more than even just the content that I learned. So when I joined Goldman, a lot of the folks on the team that I was on had the CFA designation. So I just sort of felt like, okay, if they're doing well in their role and they have it, I should be looking to do the same. It was a very like copying what they have to turn it back on myself. I enrolled in the exam and I realized that it's one exam per year. So at that time they only offered it once a year in the first week of June, and there's three different levels to it, and it was completely self study. So in college where you have more of a structured syllabus and check-ins and exams and quizzes. This was nothing like that. It was here's a stack of books. See you next June. Hope you pass. And if you don't, then you're going to have to sign up the following June.
Wow.
Very simple, but self sort of oriented process. And I think it was more of a challenge to me to say, can I actually balance work, because those obligations did not stop, with this self-studying mentality, right? And I saw some of the successful people I worked with at the time all having it. So it was almost more so I want to prove to them that I can get this as well. So I studied during those 3 years. It was tough. It required a lot of trade-offs. The exam, like I said, was the first week of June. So Memorial Day weekend, you had to kind of lock in, hunker down, and just really get through the last minute studying. But I think for me, what it allowed me to do was to really have the confidence after I got the designation to really sit with any type of client and feel confident that I know my stuff. Right? We may not agree with clients on the best approach. We may not believe that certain outcomes may come out in the markets, this and that. But I think for me, it gave me the confidence to know that I know what I'm talking about. Right. And especially at Goldman, a lot of the clients you deal with, they're multi millionaires, billionaires, very successful people. And I think for me, it was almost like a badge of confidence to be able to sit down in front of them and say, like, I can stand by this analysis. I know the research I've done is there. So it gave me a lot of confidence to do that. And I think that it's really a sign of validation in the industry to be able to say that. But it's difficult. It truly is some exams.
I've been doing this over 40 years, and there's only like a handful of people in our business. Usually you'll find people with CFAs in companies like Goldman, but not as an independent financial advisor. And that is a great, great designation. And it really positions you very strongly to talk about any investment strategy, because 99.9% of the investment advisors out there do not have a CFA. So share with us a little bit about what inspired you to pursue this direction, this career of being a holistic, comprehensive advisor that handles, everything from the womb to the tomb for your clients.
Yeah, I think coming from the world of the Goldmans and the Iconics, right? It was a lot of focus is on the asset side of the balance sheet, right? We really just focused on investments. Everything else was either outside our scope or secondary or not things we would get involved in. The true focus was just on the investments. And I think for me, I always felt like there was more to someone's financial picture than just the investments. While the investments may drive the ultimate outcome, they are not the only sort of vehicle to determine a successful outcome, right? As we all know, taxes can make or break an investment. They can make or break a retirement strategy. And I think for me, that was where I felt like there was a little bit of a disconnect, and really even some of an opportunity where I could bring the skill set that I had from the investment side, but really partner or be part of a group that looks like everything from start to finish. And I think that in the world that we're in, investments, sometimes people just see that headline number, right? The sticker number that we always say, oh, XY% returns. But ultimately, when you take out fees and taxes and this and that, what folks actually make is very different than what that original headline number was. And for me, I just wanted to feel comfortable that when I sit down with any client, I can show them that this is what sort of the investments are doing, and this is what you're ultimately earning. And how can we get all of those pictures sort of connected at the end of the day?
Absolutely. The coordination and integration of every aspect of your client's financial life. It's kind of like I use the analogy that if I was an NFL coach, I wouldn't just focus on the offensive part of the game. I would also focus on the defensive part of the game. And I would also focus on the special teams. And I would also focus on values and what's important, and really looking at the big picture. An analogy I always like to use is that if we look at something very closely, sometimes things get distorted. In other words, I could look at the ground we walk on, place a level on the ground, and communicate with passion my belief that the world is flat. But the reality is that if I move away from the earth, eventually I'm going to start to see the curvature and see that the world is round. And a lot of times people think financial planning is about investment return. And it's part of it, and it's an important part. But you work with a group that I know does your clients' property and casualty. They handle their group insurance. They handle their Medicare. They handle the investments. They handle the estate planning. They handle the pension plans. And I think that when we look back on the relationships that we develop, I always like to feel just like my logo, it's personal, not business. If I got somebody a great rate of return, but then they got sued and lost all their money, well, maybe I wasn't the best financial advisor in the world because I didn't insulate their wealth. And I know from experience in working with your partners that that is a big part of what they do, making sure that all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. It's not just the investment part, but having that background is really such a tremendous asset. Having the DNA, you will never lose the DNA that you gained from that experience at Goldman and Iconics. It's really terrific. So share with us some challenges and how you faced them and how you overcame them.
Yeah, for me, I mean, look, there's been challenges from the start, right? And some are small challenges, some are big challenges. I had challenges when I was in college, going through the recruitment cycle, ultimately landing a job through Goldman, all the way through now with sometimes difficult clients or difficult client situations. But one piece of advice that somebody gave me a long, long time back is that in your group, you always want to have a board of directors, you want to call it, and these are folks that truly have your best interest at heart, almost like mentors, right? And they may be in the same field as you, they may know you from a different time period in your life. They don't necessarily have to be family members or someone in your household, but really these folks are as like a sounding board, right, that you can reach out to, and they can give you good, honest advice. And I think for me, whenever different challenges have come up in my life, I always have a group of people that I can reach out to bounce some of these ideas off. Some of the folks that are advisors themselves in this field, sometimes if it's a very unique client situation or difficult client opportunity, I can bounce something like that off of them. Sometimes it's like some of the bigger conversations, like I was mentioning to you about the door one versus door two. Do I go the corporate route or do I go more the entrepreneurial route? Being able to kind of voice these things to this sounding board that I've sort of developed over the years, I think just gives me a lot of help, and allows me to really weigh sort of the pros and cons however, large or small the problem may be.
It's an awesome analogy. If you stayed in the corporate world, well, the corporations have a board of directors. What does the board of directors do? They act as a compass for values and decisions that are important for the future of the organization. So why not recreate that with your informal board of directors, your team of mentors? Phenomenal concept. And, um, I was involved with a recent training program where, people like yourself, they would do these retreats and they would bring their board of directors. Or if it was more family oriented and they wanted to instill family values, they would create a family retreat where they would review the direction of their family, the goals, the values. And very similarly, you do that with your board of directors and you get buy-in and you get relentless support of the pursuit of your greatness. And I think that for a young man early in this career, I see greatness in your future. I really do. I've been around long enough and I'm excited for you. So share with us some key lessons or experiences that have gotten you from the young man in Metuchen, New Jersey, to where you are right now, working with United Wealth Group and being a CFA. Share with us some of those key lessons and experiences.
Yeah, I think some of the key lesson, or I think probably one of the key lessons for me that I saw firsthand growing up, really, and I learned this through my father, and really seeing him, deliver on this. It's the importance of having work life balance. Like I said, I'm first generation. My father came over from India. For him, it was all just about work, 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 and providing for my sister, my mother, our family. And he was the sole breadwinner, in the family at the time. But despite that, he still always carved out time for me and my sister. He didn't miss any basketball game. He didn't miss any birthday. If there was any important event at school, he never missed that. And much later on in life, once I became old enough, I was able to have some of those frank conversations with him. And I learned that he had a number of career opportunities that came his way that would have, elevated him from a professional standpoint, from a economic and financial standpoint. But he didn't feel like those were the right opportunities for us as a family at that time. He didn't, want to sort of uproot us and move over to another part of the world just because of a great career opportunity. So I saw those things growing up, and I saw that doesn't matter how important work is. Of course it is. It pays the bills. I understand that. Um, but you always have to be sort of grounded and still carve out important time and be there for folks that are important in your life, whether that be, close family, spouses, significant others, close friends, whoever that may be in your life. But you always want to make sure that you're there for that as well. And I think as I continue to evolve sort of in each chapter in my life, whether it be college or work or kind of, having my own family now, I think that's something that continues to really be my anchor, that I want to be 100% present for work, be there for our clients, really be there no matter what, but not at the expense of not being there for my family. And I think that's probably the most important lesson that I've learned over the years, and that I continue to really use as an anchor moving forward.
Yeah, oh boy, I have to tell you that kind of hits home for me. So painfully. I'll share that with you because if I had to do anything over, I would have a greater balance towards doing more for the family and less for the business. And the key in life is learning from someone else, not having to repeat those mistakes. And what you just said to me demonstrates tremendous wisdom and maturity. And unfortunately, if I was going to look back, I probably was um, a little bit too much towards the business, not as much to making sure that, I was there for every game and supporting the children. And what a great perspective. I understand you have your first baby on the way.
I do. I do. We are having a baby girl. My wife is expecting at the end of April. So,
Wow.
so I'm all these lessons, and then that I've mentioned that I've seen firsthand. Now is going to be my time to implement them and really use that as a true anchor moving forward.
Yeah, I think that one thing that my dad taught me was, was work ethic. And that resonated with me. In fact, a coach that we both work with shared with me an analogy called OCEAN, which stands for open minded, which I am, conscientious, I certainly think I am, enthusiastic, definitely, agreeable. My wife would say maybe not all the time, but I'm fairly agreeable. But the last one is neurotic. And the neurotic came from the the role model of my father. As soon as World War II ended, he was working 6 to 7 days a week for the next 40 years. Because as an immigrant, he wanted to build a better life for me and my children, and me and my family, and my sister, but not understanding the unintended consequence that your dad understood, that it was more important to be here, anchored in Metuchen, rather than taking that job. And that's just such a beautiful lesson that you have learned. And I urge you to side on the family, not the business. The business will come. People will be attracted to you because of the values you have, not how good you are in your practice. You will achieve greatness, but you can't go back in time and go to the gymnastic event you missed, or you can't go back in time and go to that basketball event. So kudos to you and the role models you've had to create that mindset. And don't forget it when your daughter is born.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can you discuss any current or upcoming projects you're excited about, things that are going on in your business? And as we conclude, share with us how people can contact you, your contact information, and any message you have for people that might be listening.
Yeah, in terms of projects I'm working on the personal side, it's all just in prep for the baby girl coming, like I said, in about a month. So the personal side is all just focused on that right now. On the professional and on the work side, I think myself, Oscar, Nick, we're still in growth mode, right? We're always looking to grow, organically, grow our book of business, bring more and interesting new clients on board, tackle more interesting projects, but also looking to expand by bringing on new advisors. So I think that's something that's definitely a goal for 2026, is how we can look to really, expand the business and take it to the next level. In terms of, reaching out, like you said, best form of communication is email. That's the best way to get in touch with me, akapoor@uwgllc.com. That's the best way. I'm very, very responsive on that. So you can always reach out there, LinkedIn, or, our company website, unitedwealthgroupllc.com. In terms of piece of advice you mentioned, um, that's a good question. I think looking back on it, like I said, what I would suggest, or piece of advice I would really say to anyone, if they're thinking going down the corporate route or thinking of the entrepreneurial route, is, you'll know when the time feels right. And I think for me, like I said, I was always between door one and door two, but until I was ready to make a jump internally and I felt confident that this would be the right time, only then did I make that jump, right? If I had done it too soon, or it doesn't matter if the whole world told me to do it sooner, until I was confident and sort of made up my mind internally, that would be the only time I made that jump. So what I would say is, regardless of where you ultimately start, as you learn and develop a skill set and you feel like you're ready for the next challenge, you will know internally when you're ready to make that jump, and you'll feel confident to know that you can succeed by taking that next jump.
So a lot of relying on your intuition and confidence in yourself, knowing that this is the right time. Wonderful stuff. Really enjoyed talking with you, Arjun, as always. If you need to reach Arjun, please contact him. He will be a great asset to your team, to your business, to your life. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to join us, Arjun. And as always, it's personal, not just business. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody.
You've been tuning into It's Personal, Not Just Business, with your host, Michael Fliegelman. Each episode features role models and lessons from other successful financial advisors and brokers. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.